For content information and the link to the blog version of this video, please check the description. This video is an accompaniment to my latest story, You Can't See It, based on The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams, 1922. You don't have to read this story beforehand, but of course I would appreciate it if you did. You can find a link to the story below. Have you read my story? Thank you if you have, and if you haven't, no worries. I'll be adding a summary section to this video. But in case you want to read it, I have to give you a spoiler warning beforehand. And I will place the time code on the screen so you can skip past that. Right. If all of them have skipped, let's get on to the story summary. My story, You Can't See It, is about a child locked in their room because they are ill. But none of the adults quite understand why. So they lock them in their nursery. The child uses their toy rabbit as a comforter and confidant. As they struggle to find out what's going on with them, a doctor is called and examines the child, believing them to be suffering from madness. After the child reveals they can defend themselves, the doctor puts the matter aside, but in a twisted act of bitterness, he tells the adults to burn all the child's toys, because they are dust collectors. The adults lay all the toys out in the garden, ready to be set on fire. In the morning, a fairy comes along and brings the rabbit to life. The pair go up to the nursery, and the fairy can help the child by pausing them as they are until they can figure out what they need. What's it about? This story is based on gender dysphoria, experienced by children. Each week I randomise a story to retell, and fate brought this story to the forefront. As soon as I read it, I knew it was the perfect vessel for discussing the benefits of puberty blockers. You may wonder why I chose to write such a story, and the answer is simple yet upsetting. There are governments trying to, and successfully, removing access to puberty blockers for children under the age of 16. This is devastating for the trans community, as it means many trans kids no longer have access to the healthcare they need. I needed to show how such a concept as puberty blockers can benefit a child. My character is struggling, but then when given the chance to pause what's going on with their body, they take it. This euphoria I describe in my story is an actual feeling for many children, and now one that many can no longer access. So what are puberty blockers? Puberty blockers, as explained by Planned Parenthood, I'll leave the link to that website down below, are medicines that prevent puberty from happening. They work by blocking hormones, testosterone and estrogen, that lead to puberty-related changes in your body. This stops things like periods and breast growth, or voice deepening and facial hair growth. So as you can see, this medicine would be beneficial to a trans child. They are not just used for trans children either. Puberty blockers have been used since the early 90s to help kids precocious puberty. This is where a child's body enters puberty too soon. Taking away access to puberty blockers helps no child who needs them. There are little to no major documented side effects, though some may experience a slight change in bone density. This might sound scary, but it's no more harmful than any other side effect you find on most medications. Puberty blockers do much more good than harm. So why are they being banned? The short answer is transphobia. Many transphobes and gender critics have accused puberty blockers of hurting children, and as we've discussed, this is far from the case. They insist they will cause irreversible damage to the child, which is far from the truth. Puberty blockers are reversible. They claim it's mutilation and surgery. No child under the age of 18 or 16 at a push is receiving affirmation surgery, aside from a few exceptions where the child's life is in immediate danger without intervention. Affirmation surgery is not mutilation. It does what it says on the tin. It affirms gender and helps those who need it. The things they claim puberty blockers do to harm children just do not occur. It's ludicrous. These lies are created to scare those who don't understand the benefits, and why? Because they despise the trans community. That's all it comes down to. They are abusing children because they despise the trans community. The worst part is governments are falling for it. They take reports of puberty blockers going wrong, and they use them as evidence that puberty blockers are dangerous. These anecdotes I mentioned are rare cases and have nothing to do with how beneficial the treatment is. These are a few select children who realised that puberty blockers were not for them. This could happen in any transition journey. We will all go down paths we may realise aren't for us. That's why puberty blockers exist, to help trans youths, to give them time to figure out what they need. Every child who may benefit from puberty blockers is involved in the discussions with their endocrinologist, and if there is a problem, the problem falls onto the endocrinologist for not doing their job, and not to the treatment itself, which has been proven to work repeatedly. You may wonder why I care so much, so let me tell you more about my story. My relationship with puberty. When I was younger, I displayed signs of gender dysphoria. I was uncomfortable with the idea of going through puberty and becoming something that those around me told me I would grow into. I'd already been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, and so my doctors decided that was what they needed to focus on. That was the most obvious route to my problems, right? Well, at the time, they believed so. They sent me to a children's hospital house for a couple of months to be studied and receive therapy. It helped relieve my most immediate general anxiety disorder symptoms, such as my vomiting, but internally I was still struggling. You couldn't see it, but something was wrong. I don't blame my healthcare providers because I believe and know that they had only the best intentions for me. They couldn't see what was wrong because they thought they already knew. It was due to this assumption that I didn't come to learn about puberty blockers, and it meant I went through the wrong puberty. This was a very agonising experience for me. I couldn't understand why those around me were so comfortable to grow up and see their body changing. It felt like torture. Every slight difference in my body that was pointed out made me want to break down into tears. I did everything I could to hide the symptoms of puberty. I stopped talking to mask the changes to my voice. I always wore my school blazer even in the summer to cover the changes to my body. I did all I could to avoid changing for physical education. When I did it, I was later removed anyway. When I say you couldn't see it, what I mean is you couldn't see what was going on inside me. You couldn't see the pain I was going through. If you looked hard enough, you could have seen what I was doing. At the time, I couldn't see what I was doing, but looking back, I can. Now I know that I'm trans, and I understand who I am. I understand why I did the things I did. I was suffering. Puberty blockers would have eased my pain. It's too late for me now. I went through the wrong puberty. There are some things that will be difficult, perhaps impossible to change. But there are kids like me out there who have the chance to prevent going through what I did. And I will not sit around and just let them suffer because of some vile transphobes. I didn't know about puberty blockers. If I did, I would have had the chance to benefit from them. These children are learning about them much earlier because dysphoria is more understood, but they can't access the healthcare they need because it's being stolen from them. Imagine knowing there is something that exists that could save you, but knowing you cannot access it and have no choice but to go through something you didn't need to experience. That could and does kill. Children are dying because of this. This is not just some harmless decision. This is idiocy that benefits not a single soul. We cannot allow the haters to kill our children because they don't understand them. So please do your part. Sign petitions, tweet about what's happening, spread the word about the injustice that's going on. Make a difference, because together we can change and stop these harmful laws and do something to help these children. Thank you for listening to this blog. Please consider donating to my Cash App down below to help with my own personal transition. Follow me on my Twitter, that will be links down below. And subscribe to this channel to see more content. I hope I see you soon. Thank you for listening.